Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, and my guest today is Nicole Ballantyne. She's the Head of Customer Success and Partnerships at Mestec, and Mestec provides the foundation for a journey to Industry 4.0, even in environments with low levels of automation. They have a manufacturing execution system, planning and scheduling tools, and they work with easy to deploy technology. And it's a cloud-based solution that can be rapidly deployed. So Nicole, welcome. Thank you so much for being on this. This is only our second podcast, so I'm very new at this. And you are very welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. And this is my first podcast ever. So thank you.
Between us, we'll muddle through. So when I was stalking your qualifications on LinkedIn, you have a Bachelor of Engineering from Imperial College London, which is rather impressive. When did you take that?
Long time ago.
Yeah. What made you want to do it?
What made me want to do it? I was always at school. I was always interested in making stuff, making things, inventing things, and I did design technology at school. And I got into a few competitions like Young Engineer for Britain and the Design Awards at school. And through winning a competition, so I was the Young Female Engineer of the Year in 19 blah blah a long time ago. And through that, I got on a WISE course, actually, a Women in Science and Engineering course. And they said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, I wasn't really very sure. So they said, well, if you do MIMechE, then you can do anything. So do maths and physics A level, and you'll be able to do anything. And I kind of took their advice, and here we are 30 odd years later.
34 years into it, so I imagine we are a very similar age. So you didn't know what you wanted to do. Did you enjoy the course? I mean, what did you specialize in when you did it?
Well, maths. I love maths, but then I like the practical side of making things and inventing things. So just generally making stuff. So it kind of ticked all those boxes. And through getting my place at Imperial, they asked me if I would like to be sponsored, and I said, "Oh, what's that?" And I got the industrial liaison guy gave me a list, and I applied to a whole load of the companies on there and got offered 4 sponsorships.
Wow.
And now I look back, I kind of think, would I have chosen if I know now what I knew then, would I have chosen the one I did? But I chose the one that gave you the most money.
That seems fair.
And that was a company called Metal Box, who now are, I think they're called Embiosis, but basically they're the largest packaging manufacturer in the world. And so
I noticed you'd spent a lot of your early part of your career in packaging.
Yes, yeah. So they make tin cans for Heinz and for Coca-Cola, so that nobody's really heard of the name, but you'll have at least 30 or 40 products in your cupboards for sure.
I find that about most manufacturing industries, they're integral to our everyday life. But a lot of the time, nobody knows the name of the company unless it's the actual consumer brand.
Yeah.
You also did an MSc in quality management from Cranfield University.
Yeah. So that was after my first couple of jobs. So I got taken. I was an undergraduate with Metal Box, and then I went in as a graduate because I guess it was kind of the easy option after finals. I didn't have to go through the milk round and everything. So I went on as a graduate onto their graduate scheme, and they typically moved you around every couple of years. And after the first couple of placements, I thought, where do I want my career in Metal Box to go? And I'd been working in like total preventive maintenance, world-class manufacturing sort of teams, and sort of heading up projects around quality and reducing quality complaints. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll, the pathway was to become a factory manager. And I thought, I'm not sure I really want to be in charge of 200 men. What? How can I get on one of the top teams and not be the factory manager? So I thought quality was the way to go. And so I became world-class manufacturing manager at Tyneside Printers, and I started doing a part-time masters at Cranfield. And to be honest, being a quality manager was awful, because if everything went well, it wasn't because of you, and if everything went wrong, it was all your fault.
Yeah, that seems fair.
So and then
I
I think going through a quality management degree, I realized that my kind of the way that my brain is wired is not procedural. So
yeah,
it kind of, by doing that qualification, it confirmed that I never wanted to be in quality ever again.
it's very detailed, isn't it? And you sort of have to go one, two, three, four. You can't just go 1 to 10.
Yeah.
You've got to follow each step, haven't
Yeah,
you?
and anyone that knows me, my brain doesn't work like that.
um,
So
so you sort of moved out of the quality and you sort of moved into European Business Development Manager, and you went to Crown Cork and Seal, and you were there for quite a while.
yeah, so Metal Bots got taken over by a French company called Carnot, and it became Carnot Metal Bots, and then we got taken over by an American company called Crown Cork and Seal.
Ah, right.
So it's all part of the same company. And after my stint at Tyneside Printers in world class manufacturing, we'd just been taken over by the American company Crown, and they wanted to see Europe as one number, so the accountants wanted to see that one number. They wanted everybody on the same system. So we had factories that were making thousands and thousands of cans a second, and then we had factories that were making, the really ornate, beautiful tins you get in duty free with a bottle of whiskey in, that were making 100 cans a shift.
Yeah.
So the span of the different products that were being made in the organisation was massive. But I say, when we got taken over, we wanted to be seen as, or Europe wanted to be seen as one number.
I
So
suppose
they
it's a
wanted
bit
to
like buying your shopping in Aldi and buying it in Fortnum and Mason.
yeah, so they wanted to see a number, yeah, that one number, and so they wanted one system, one ERP system across the whole of the company in Europe. And so they decided to implement JD Edwards, and I think they've now converted to SAP. But anyway, they wanted to implement this sort of high level ERP system across Europe. And so I got myself onto one of those teams, and did a couple of implementations in the UK. And then I got my own team and went out into the Benelux and did 13 factories out there. So I would go in with my team of 10, we'd meet the factory team of 10, we'd spend 3 months understanding the processes,
Hmm.
how we were going to put the software in place. And then at the end of month 3, we'd have a week of go live, and then we'd go see it, and then we'd go on to the next factory. So it
So
was
you sort
it
of
was
like
good times.
a roving implementation person
Yeah,
across Europe.
yeah. For a
That
while,
sounds like it'd have
yeah.
been great fun.
Yeah, no, it was very good, and we had a great team out there, and what was great was that you actually saw what you'd done, which
Hmm.
in a lot of jobs now, it's kind of, you don't necessarily see those tangible effects immediately, whereas there, every 3-4 months we were doing another factory, so it was very tangible what our results were.
And at the time, this would have been cutting edge technology, fairly new to a lot of manufacturing plants, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah, and I think what I see now is how far ahead they were as a multinational, massive global corporation, how far ahead they were. So I thought they were quite backwards, but now when I go into some manufacturing companies, I think, gosh, we were doing that 25 years ago in metal box. So for sure, it was, yeah, pretty forefront of yeah.
You sort of, as your career progressed, you started working more with, I suppose, sustainability
Yeah,
for
yeah,
manufacturing companies.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you sort of started doing that in what, about 2008, was it?
Yes, so if again, if you know me, that timing came at a point where I had children. So working for a manufacturing company, and I know this is all about women in STEM, and maybe it doesn't sell it so well, but working in a manufacturing company, I'd moved from Crown, which was this big global packaging company. I'd gone to work for a small SME
Mm.
in international business development, and they were manufacturing anti-corrosion coatings.
Yeah.
So there was, I don't know, maybe 100 employees. I was on the senior management team as their international business development. So for me, it was my dream job. I was doing a lot of traveling. It was great. And I found myself in Hong Kong and South Korea, I think it was, and thinking, everyone smells of garlic. And I realized I'd got morning sickness. So, I got
Oh,
into this position, dream job, and was like, I couldn't travel anymore. Yeah, I wanted to have 6 months off, and then I had another child, and I just felt so guilty to the business owner that there was a big hole in their management team, and I couldn't fulfill all the promises that I'd wanted. And with them being a small company, they couldn't afford to kind of cover the gaps. So I moved into the public sector, and that's when I moved into I looked at some really, I guess now looking back, I looked at some really rubbish jobs, and I applied for a kind of account managementy job. And when I went in, they to this sustainability consultancy, they said, well, you could do that job standing on your head, but we're trying to recruit a technology and innovation manager, and you would be brilliant for that. And I was like, I'd never even thought about that.
play to
So
your strengths.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I had another child while I was there, because they had much better maternity benefits.
It is difficult, and it is one thing that hasn't really changed over time at all. Is when you do have a child and come back to work, how you're going to juggle both full-time roles. Being a parent's a full-time role, and simple things like, you know, pumping your breast milk at work and storing it is a safe and comfortable location for you to do that. And I think the fact that we're talking about it more now is the first step towards solving that.
Yeah,
I don't think there's an easy answer. I think hopefully after the pandemic, with more roles being flexible or hybrid, that will help moving
yeah, yeah,
forwards.
yeah, yeah,
Hopefully. Um,
yeah, yeah. No, and for sure, it is. Yeah, that it was that flexibility I was looking for, and for me, working in the public sector, it gave me that flexibility. They were far more understanding, and whether it was they were more understanding or I felt less guilty,
were there more women
because
in the team in the public sector compared to
oh,
previous
absolutely,
roles? So
absolutely,
it
yeah,
maybe it was more practice.
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Um, so with all the work you've done on sustainability since 2008, and all the companies you've spoken to when you were at Made Smarter and KTN and now at Mestec, do you feel that SMEs are more invested in changing their processes to become more sustainable? Have you seen a shift change in that?
Um, I'm not sure I can say I've seen a shift change.
Mm.
Maybe with the increase in energy prices, there's been a shift change. So, which makes you look a bit more at the question, why would you look at sustainability, and why would you look at sustainable practices? And you know, when you go right to the bottom line, people do it to save money.
Yeah.
People do it because there's a financial benefit. Manufacturers do it because it actually affects their bottom line. It will reduce their energy spend, and that, to build a business case to buy a piece of automation equipment or to invest in some software that helps you be more productive. What's the payback, and what's my, either reduced line time, so therefore reduced energy. There always has to be that bottom line of a saving, and it's been like that for the last 20 years.
I think you're right. I think we're seeing more of it now, and it's because the energy prices are having a really sort of negative effect to that bottom line.
Yeah.
that more people are looking at it more seriously, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I suppose,
Can I just say, I think it's a bit
yeah,
like
sure.
industry. Yeah, it's a bit like industry four. You don't do industry four you don't just get a robot because you want to do industry four. You buy that robot, or you invest in that software because it gives you a financial benefit. And when that financial benefit is in, it's a productivity, a labor saving, whether it's an energy saving, whether it's a material saving, there's always a benefit, and that's
Mm.
business, isn't it?
I would qualify that by saying I'm looking at a robotic project at the moment purely because I do want a robot,
Well, it's all right, you're the boss.
but that's me. Um, so I mean, obviously throughout your career, you've studied as well, um, and you've taken on new roles, you've learnt new things within those roles. Um, do you still feel that you've got lots of things to learn?
Totally, totally. And it's a very old adage, but the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I can't say that enough. And I say that to my kids all the time. I think it's so funny that you think you know everything. Oh my God. I and sometimes I question myself, and I kind of think, oh, I if I shove any more in, it's just I think I've got more coming out the other side than I've got going in this side. But there is so much to learn, and I always thought that after my stint in the public sector, I would go back into manufacturing. I love it, making real stuff, not just moving money around, making real stuff. And I always thought I'd go back into manufacturing, but when this opportunity came in with Mestec, um, it was a step change in my understanding of software. And it's a whole new area really, that I have to learn to try and understand. I mean, working with some of the very young people that I'm working with now, whose brains are just so alive. It drives me, and it gives me that
Mm.
energy. But at the same time, I'm kind of shit scared because I can't keep up.
But when you're in a room with people that talented and that passionate, you can almost feel the energy and the synergy in the team, and it's so great, particularly with younger people, to see one come up with a suggestion, somebody else add to it, someone else take it and run with it, and to
Yeah,
see the end result of that.
yeah.
Is that one of the things you find rewarding?
Absolutely. And you know what? That's the one thing that lockdown and working at home has stopped. It's that, you go on a Zoom meeting because you have a reason, and you have that reason. It's very functional. Whereas, I ring people up now and say, I just need to talk. I just need to talk to you. I just need to talk to somebody who's going to answer back with something interesting, and I can bounce back, and I can back, because I can't do it on my own. So,
And I think
yeah,
not
collaboration is
be
key.
Yeah, and you said you can't do it on your own. So Joanna Brooks from episode 1, who I spoke to earlier today, she was talking about her metal mates, people that she respects and has great relationships with in her industry. Over your career, have you got any manufacturing mates that have given you any particular help or inspiration, or you can have a rant with over the phone or in the pub or
Yeah, one of the big advantages of being taken on by a global huge company at the after you graduate is that, I mean, in my time, and I guess it's the same now, there is a cohort of people of the same kind of age, or the same, you're all pretty much single, you're out there, you're living life, you're living your best life in your 20s, and you have time to invest in those friendships. So there's a whole group of metal boxers around, that we're still in contact with each other. I'm still really, really good friends with a whole group of them, and one of them is now the guy who runs the company I'm now working for. So what goes around comes around. Keep those
yeah.
friendships and those relationships going, and yeah, having that network of people, both to bounce ideas on, to talk about new opportunities, to yeah, to chew the fat with, is an absolute must. And I think, when people go and work for smaller companies, I think they might miss out on that. And I think it's such an important, that network is really, really important. But there's other
I
ways to
think,
get networks. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, definitely. The paying for your network is very important, and investing time into those relationships as well.
Yeah.
It definitely does pay off, as you clearly demonstrated. But from your time at Metalbox and perhaps any other time, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think I'm still yet to receive it.
Oh, right, okay.
um,
Don't go on a podcast with Kirsty. There you go.
no. Um, Gosh, that's a big question. What's the best piece of advice? I I mean, I think if I was to talk to myself in a younger, a 15, 16-year-old Nicole, I'd just say, believe in yourself. Because the amount of times I doubt my capabilities, or I doubt that a project will work, or I doubt that I'm communicating properly, or just stop doubting and just go do, and take those comments that are made along
Mm.
the way as positives to build, as opposed to, they're not about chipping away and taking you down. When people comment and make criticism, that it is constructive, it's about building you up, even though some of it at the time feels quite critical.
Yeah, I think it's having the criticism in a constructive way that you can take it, apply it, and
Yeah,
grow with it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and uh, along with growing on your journey along the way, you've done several volunteering projects. You currently judge in the Ofwat Innovation Competition, I believe,
Yeah, yeah.
but you also spent 5 months. Was it in Namibia?
Namibia in Africa.
Namibia,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, project managing the construction of a school and a clinic.
yeah, yeah.
That is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that came at a point, at the end of my Metalbox career, really. So I was at a point where I felt like I was a super tiny cog in a huge machine.
Mm.
I ended up at a factory in Shipley, the factory that makes the machines that makes the tin cans. And I kind of looked around the office and saw all these guys that were there, and they were just wanting to stay till their. It was a great
Mm.
pension scheme. It's a final salary pension scheme, and they got ages to go. And I was thinking, God, it was like walking in treacle. And I thought, I want to do something exciting, so I applied to Operation Rally and got on their program. Metalbox, brilliant. They sponsored me, so they paid half my salary while I was out in Africa for five
Oh, that's
months which is
fantastic.
just brilliant. And again, some a benefit that you get from larger companies. And then basically, while I was out in Africa, I came back and decided I was going to leave my job and go and work for an SME. Go and work for a small manufacturer who, where I could be a big cog in a small machine. And then, of course, I got pregnant, so that wasn't maybe the best idea of. But anyway, it was a great project. It was a great program to be part of, and I would say, taking that time out, um, and going to Africa, and just, I guess, as that kind of grounding,
Mm.
realizing, their day to day third world worries. When we worry about stuff, and I say to my kids, gosh, don't cry about that. It's such a first world problem. Just
Yeah,
don't even think about it, because their day to day issue wasn't making something or making something more productively. It was getting fed.
yeah,
And so we built a school, and to get to the site where we built this school, it was like a 2-day drive. There wasn't proper roads or anything, and just to see that level of um what's the word, sort of industrialization, or no, there was nothing, there was no infrastructure at all. It was a great thing to see, and I'd love to show the kids, and I'd love to go back, actually. And I've talked to a couple of my friends who I'm still in contact with. We should go back 20 years later and see, one, is it still there, and two, what it, how developed it's become in 20 years as a country.
I think it'd be great for you to be able to sort of see the difference 20 years on,
Mhm.
particularly if you can take your family with you as well and go,
Yeah.
look, I did this. Because it's what everything we do is, whether large or small, it's a legacy.
Yeah.
for what we hope will be remembered by. And I think building a school and a clinic is a damn good legacy for a woman in industry.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
One final question, and then I'll let you get back. Um, you've mentioned your family a few times, and you've mentioned the difficulty of balancing uh, work, professional life, and the family home life. Do you have any tips for people who are trying to do that and maybe try and keep their career progression going at the same time?
Um, I think it's all very personal, and it's whatever where there's a will, there's a way. There was challenges, but moving into the public sector for me worked because it gave me that flexibility, and I wanted to continue. I wanted to carry on. I went to a few mother and toddler group. I mean, I think maternity leave is just bonkers. Why you get 6 months off when they do nothing? All they do is sleep and eat, and then when they actually get really interesting, you've got to go back to work. So I say we should have like wet nurses, and we just give our children away at no, I'm joking, that's a bit controversial. No, I think I've managed while the kids were young to
Mm,
balance having flexibility in my job, to still keep my grey matter going by learning new things, by changing jobs, by becoming part of other organizations, and so still learning a lot myself
mm.
to satisfy my own head, whilst being flexible enough to spend time with the children. And this year, September, hopefully my eldest will be going off to university. So I kind of the end is in light. So
Oh, you